Today I'm going to give you my DraftKings picks for Tuesday, November 6th. We're also going to dive into my favorite DraftKings tiers options, along with 3 of my favorite player prop bets of the night for NHL. Lots to get to, and we're starting right now. What's up, guys? Joe Holka here. Welcome to another daily fantasy sports and betting video. If this is your first time here and you want to become a profitable DraftKings player and get better at betting, start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you don't miss anything along the way. If you want to take that a step further, check out the description below. And all the live streams are going on Twitch from now on, so definitely check that out, as well as the Discord community. Get involved, guys. Really excited about what we're building here, and let's jump in. All right, so today's 9-game slate, pretty interesting one, actually. We have a ton of options as far as prop bets as well that I definitely want to make time for, but let's just start on the team ratings page at Fantasy Labs. This is one of the pages that I really like to start my research process. I'm definitely trying to target in DFS situations where there's going to be a lot of shots on goal on both sides. Just adds to kind of what the pace is going to be as far as the game, and then kind of gives us a better idea of what teams we should be attacking before we even look at some of the Vegas lines, which we'll get to. So one of the ones that stands out, Carolina at the top. I mean, that's normally not too surprising just because this team's offensive system just really revolves around shooting the puck. As you can see, their Corsi 4 over the past month is the top in the entire slate, followed by San Jose and Vegas. So if we're just looking at Corsi expectation, that takes into effect the matchup as well. Still the top 3 teams that we just talked about. So it is a pretty good situation for a couple of those teams at the top for sure. So I'm sure we'll talk about that. If we just look at Corsi against over the past month, Toronto 4th most. So it appears to be a really good spot for Vegas. So not surprising to see them towards the top of the expectation. And then we see San Jose against a Minnesota team that hasn't been that great this year. We just know how good San Jose has been defensively. Minnesota hasn't given up a ton of shots, but they have been giving up a decent amount of goals and Corsi 4 over the past month as well. So if we just look at some of the goals for offensively, San Jose has actually been pretty strong, but it is a really tough matchup against Carolina, so not super interested in that. But yeah, outside of that, the top teams, I would imagine that this will kind of be what things are looking like on the Vegas page as well. One other team that really stands out, so if we just sort by expected goals for, New Jersey at the top against Ottawa, I think that that's a really great spot for this New Jersey team. And the best thing about playing New Jersey players in DFS is we know a lot of where the scoring is going to come from. It's going to come from that Hall, Palmieri, Hischier line. So it's really easy to stack. I would imagine that there'll be some options for sure, but we'll have to check their prices. But yeah, I'm really interested in New Jersey today, especially if I'm stacking things up. And talking about stacks, I think that Tampa Bay is probably one of the best stacks on the entire night. So they do have the 3rd highest matchup rating. So really like them against this Edmonton team who played last night. Honestly, I think both sides of this game could be relatively strong. I'm interested in some of the Edmonton players as well against Tampa Bay. Although they are a pretty decent defensive team, they've given up. Actually, they're kind of middle of the pack in shots against. So maybe Edmonton's a little bit better kind of opportunity here than I even realized. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. Definitely want to jump into some specifics, but just wanted to always start on this page, kind of get an idea of where some of the teams that are in good positions to get a lot of shots. So let's jump over to look at some Vegas lines here. All right, so not surprising to see Tampa Bay at the top against Edmonton, 3.5 goals. Pretty far and away the top implied total of the night. As far as the highest favorite, it is Tampa Bay. The second highest favorite is Columbus, a team we haven't really talked about yet. But against a Dallas team, that definitely makes some sense, especially at home. There's a couple options that I am interested in on Columbus, which we'll touch on. Yeah, pumped to see New Jersey towards the top, even on the road. I think they're in a really good spot against this Ottawa team that's really struggled. Those 3 teams seem like a really good spot. Obviously mentioned San Jose. Pretty much always in consideration. Burns, Carlson, all of those guys. Now that Joe Thornton's back as well. Just a really solid first power play to attack for sure. One thing that stands out is how far down Vegas is on the line. So maybe we'll get a little bit lower ownership on Vegas today. They're on the road, but let's talk a little bit about how bad Toronto's been at home this year. It's kind of weird because they've been amazing on the road. So maybe that changes from time to time, but it's not a great spot against against the Knights for Toronto, just because of how good the Golden Knights have been defensively this year. It is kind of one of the best offenses in the league in Toronto, obviously, but without Austin Matthews, it's just something that we're going to have to kind of consider for sure. Haven't really touched a bunch on news and notes yet, but definitely wanted to talk about how Edmonton looks to be shuffling their lines a little bit. Their lineup, Ty Ratty, Kyler Yamamoto, Kevin Garrell, looks like they'll be back in the lineup on Tuesday night. Yamamoto is always a really interesting one, especially if he ends up playing on McDavid's line. We should get a decent amount of savings there. He is a high volume shooter for a guy when he does get in the lineup. So I think that's pretty interesting. Looks like Victor Hedman didn't morning skate today. He has an upper body injury that he's battling with. So looks to be out again today. It'll be something we have to kind of check on a little bit closer to lock. So keeping an eye on that. Not a ton of other big news items as far as a DFS perspective today, but definitely wanted to touch on the Edmonton side of things. Looks like Ryan Kessler is going to be a game time decision for Anaheim, and Ryan Getzlaf as well, game time decision. So a couple spots there for Anaheim that we'll have to keep an eye on against LA, team that's been struggling most of the year. And then also San Jose. I probably should mention that Evander Kane will play tonight. He did take a puck in the face on Monday night's practice, but it looks like he'll be fine to play. Thomas Hertl is a game time decision again with a head injury. So couple injuries to watch. This could be a slate where we really have to be up to date on news. Transitioning over to some of the lines and power play lines today, definitely interested in this Tampa Bay team. It's kind of crazy to look at what some of their prices are compared to what they were last year. Steven Stamkos is a guy that's been shooting a ton lately, 99th percentile in power play shots over the past month. Always something I'm trying to target with Tampa Bay specifically, just because when they kind of start feeding Stamkos the goal through their system, their power play system, he's a guy that can really go on runs. So like him quite a bit. Another guy that shoots the puck a ton and has been blocking shots is Ryan McDonagh, 6,100. Really like him on this power play unit. Probably one of my favorite plays at his price point on the entire slate, 6,100. He is kind of middle of the pack as far as if you're going to pay up or pay down, but 94th percentile on shots plus blocks over the past month in this really high total game against Edmonton. Definitely think that he's squarely in play. So let's go ahead and look at the other side of this game in Edmonton. Definitely think that Connor McDavid leads the entire slate in Corsi over the past month, and Corsi is one of the best stats you can look at for center for whatever reason. So he's in the 98th percentile there. Can't really say too much about Connor McDavid, right? He's just been elite this year, kind of putting this team on his back. But he is a guy that has ramped up his shot volume this year, so that's something we always like to see for DFS. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has been right there with him. So if we get him as a value, he's been a really strong option to pair with McDavid. Since he's been on that top line, it's really worked out well for those guys. Finally, McDavid has someone to play with, really. So as soon as Nugent-Hopkins moved to the wing, he's really been great in DFS, 95th percentile in shots over the past month, 97th in Corsi. So love Nugent-Hopkins pretty much every night when he's playing with Connor McDavid. I just love this Edmonton team for stacking, right? Because you can always throw Clefbaum on the back end of your stack for 5,300. This guy has been on an absolute tear as far as his peripherals. Like, look at some of these shots that he's had. So if we could sort by shots over the past month, Clefbaum is third highest in the entire slate, 97th percentile in shots. It's definitely something I'm keeping an eye on. 94th in power play shots. So it's a spot in this power play unit that you can get at a discount, but he's still kind of being funneled through as far as the offense. So McDavid's going to lead the way here, but I definitely think that Clefbaum is a really solid option at 5,300. We mentioned McDonagh. Really like McDonagh and Clefbaum both today. So outside of some of those main teams that I might be looking to stack, I'm kind of looking at the center position. There's really not a ton to love today. I do think that if we're just looking for a pure one-off play, Jordan Staal is a guy that makes a decent amount of sense for Carolina. Carolina's got a decent implied total as well, so they are at home against this St. Louis team who hasn't been that great this year, and Jordan Staal at 4,900 definitely makes a lot of sense relative to his shot volume on 98th percentile in Corsi, which is really strong, almost up to kind of the McDavid numbers there. So as you can see, his shot volume, really solid floor for Staal at 4,900. I think he's a fantastic price. You can use him as one-off plays in between your stacks. Definitely like the idea of going to him. As far as value at the center position, it's probably even worse today. You can keep an eye on a guy like Boone Jenner at 4,500. Talk about him a decent amount just because he is a high volume shooter at 4,500. The problem with him last year is he wasn't really on the power play much. So now that he's been getting a little bit more power play ice time, he's been a lot more viable. Had a goose egg in the last game, so maybe he will be off him. I also expect Panarin and Atkinson to be a relatively popular option for this team this slate. The problem with playing Jenner is you're on the second unit, right? And I think that this Panarin, Atkinson, Seth Jones unit is going to be one of the ones that we want to attack in stacks today. But if you are fading Columbus, definitely think that Boone Jenner is a decent value play at center. But like I said, don't love the value at center today. At the winger position, one of the guys that I feel like I always like is Jonathan Marchessault for the Vegas Golden Knights. I also like a couple guys actually on this team. I think Alex Tuch and Jonathan Marchessault, some of the best plays on the entire slate. 99th percentile in shots for Marchessault and Tuch over the past month. Both of these guys 98th in power play shots. Like just elite shot volume from Tuch and Marchessault. I think if you're going to pair two guys together, this is a really good way to do it as far as getting exposure to this power play unit against Toronto. So definitely think that that's something I'm going to try and do. I guess there is a little bit of a problem, right? You don't get Marchessault and Tuch at even strength, but another guy, if we're just looking at value at the winger position that stands out to me is Pacioretty. So I think Pacioretty is probably the pay down option for me at winger today. 90th percentile in shots plus blocks, which is pretty solid. And then if you're playing Tuch already, you at least get correlation on at even strength. If we just go back over to the power play lines, you'll see that Pacioretty is on the second unit. So that's not as strong, but definitely like them together, like a lot of the Vegas guys today in this matchup. Like I said, at home on the road against this Toronto team that's really struggled at home. I think that they make a lot of sense. Outside of that, at the winger position, we haven't really talked about New Jersey yet, and I think New Jersey's in a really strong spot. So we talked about this top line, arguably been the best top line in the entire league this year. These guys have just been on a tear. So I love Taylor Hall. Always love Taylor Hall. I think that this guy is one of the guys that you really want to consider paying all the way up for today. 99th percentile in shots plus blocks, guys. So he's not just giving you shot volume. He's giving you block shots as well at a decent clip. That's something you don't normally get from the winger position. So it's something that's super nice as far as his floor. Kyle Palmieri, guy's just a pure goal scorer. Taylor Hall loves playing with him for that reason. And he's been streaky, right? So starting the year, he obviously went on that tear, went cold for a little bit. I could see him really getting back on track in this matchup against Ottawa just because of how bad Ottawa has been this year. So yeah, I really like the New Jersey guys. Not so much on Hischier, but it's more of a correlation play. Like he makes some sense in tournaments, but not a guy I'm going to in cash games. Another guy, I wish he was on the first unit, but if you are fading Hall, if you are fading Palmieri, Sammy Vatanen at 5,600 will kind of transition over to defense. He's leading the entire slate in shots plus blocks over the past month. Only Dougie Hamilton at the defense position is even in the same range as this guy. So just elite peripherals at a really strong, really cheap price point. As you can see, 5-shot, 6-shot, 6-block game. He's got a lot of upside as far as where his block shots and shots are going to come from. So 5,600, I definitely think he's one of the defensemen you want to prioritize, along with McDonough, Clefbaum. Those are kind of the guys I'm on. You can always make a case for Brent Burns. So if we go back to San Jose, definitely think that Brent Burns makes some sense. I liked him a little bit more when he was on this first power play unit with Karlsson. Looks like that's changed, but this second unit, very viable as well. I guess I didn't mention Evander Kane. He's going to be back in the lineup. I definitely like Evander Kane. Always like Evander Kane. 98th percentile in shots, 99th in shots plus blocks. At 5,800, that is a crazy price point for Evander Kane. He might be one of my favorite wingers on the entire slate. I didn't realize how cheap he was. Look at this. So he has an 11-shot game under his belt. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, I love Evander Kane at 5,800. That's going to be a cornerstone for me, looking a little bit deeper into this here. All right, so outside of that, at the defense position, let's see if we got any type of value that kind of jumps out here before we get over into tiers and props. Okay, so in Tampa Bay, one thing that I do think makes some sense if you do fade McDonough is to go to Sergachev on the second unit. So 4,300, he's a guy that Does shoot a decent amount, but more or less he's getting shots plus blocks for him. 84th percentile there. Pretty decent floor for his price. I think he's a reasonable pay down option in this high total game. Colin Miller. So I keep kind of going back to these Vegas guys, but I think it's a really good spot for them against Toronto, like I said. And if you end up going kind of the Pacioretty route, you can always correlate him with Miller. Really cheap stack, kind of mini stack there for some guys that definitely have a decent floor as far as their shots and block shots. So 93rd percentile in Corsi for a guy that you get at 3,800 on DraftKings. Definitely think that he's pretty strong, especially in this matchup. I think these Vegas guys could go under own today too, relative to some of these other teams because their team totals not super high. All right, one thing I haven't really done with you guys yet is go through tiers. I honestly think that this is one of the best formats that there is for DFS hockey on DraftKings. So yeah, I'm going to start going through this a little bit. I think it's interesting to do this. The games are super soft. Obviously, I'm doing my bankroll challenge with tiers as well, so paying a little bit of attention to these smaller kind of niche games on DraftKings. If you haven't checked out the bankroll video, definitely check that out as well. So yeah, in tier 1 today, I guess we're here. Pedersen is now in tier 1 with the guys like Connor McDavid, John Tavares, Taylor Hall. I'm not going near him in tier 1. I definitely think he'll be the lowest owned. Brock Besser not playing. I think that he's fine against Detroit. He is on the road. I'm on Taylor Hall in this spot, guys, against Ottawa. I think that he's the top option in tier 1. I think that you can pair him with Palmieri, who we'll get to. Just a really strong floor from him. As far as his shot volume, we talked about how he's blocking shots as well. It's close, though, between him and McDavid. I think that the tiebreaker is that they played last night. They're on the road in Tampa. McDavid always in play. I'll probably have a pretty high allocation of McDavid in tournaments in tiers, but really zoned into McDavid and Taylor Hall. I think Tavares is probably my number 3. The problem is I'm just not really high on as high on Toronto against the Golden Knights tonight. Definitely think they can break through. Compare Tavares with the guy like Mitch Marner in tier 5, which we'll talk about, but more on McDavid and Taylor Hall in tier 1. Tier 2 gets a little bit more interesting. I think it's Brent Burns for me. Just really like the floor you get from him. Longer term shots plus blocks guy for sure. So I think Burns is really solid in tier 2. Sagan, don't love the matchup against Columbus, more on the other side of that. And Timo Meier, yeah. This is one that I was pretty shocked to see him all the way up here, especially with some of the other guys we have on this slate. But it makes a ton of sense. So Timo Meier in tournaments is something that I think people won't click, but he's been elite lately. He's been scoring a ton of goals. You do get access to this high total game against Minnesota. Minnesota's given up the third most power play opportunities this year. So definitely think Timo Meier in tournaments in tier 2 makes some sense. Tier 3, this one was pretty easy for me, honestly. I'm going Jonathan Marchessault. The floor you get from this guy is just insane. The top shot prediction of the entire night at Labs. So really like Marchessault. Mentioned how much I like the Golden Knights. As far as my GPP play in this tier, it's definitely going to be Palmieri with Taylor Hall. I think that his volume is insane as far as his shots. He's going to get a lot of opportunities to score goals. We talked about Palmieri a lot. I'll be pairing him with Taylor Hall in tiers for sure tonight. Mika Zibanejad is the only guy I would really consider outside of those two. Pretty nice floor from him just because of his shot volume, but he's probably a clear tier below Palmieri and Marchessault for me in tier 3. Tier 4, Brendan Gallagher is the guy that I want in cash games just because of his shot volume. I think that he's one of those guys that is in a pretty decent spot today that will get kind of overlooked. 95th percentile in shots over the past month. So he's the guy I want for floor in this tier in tournaments. I'm going probably to Nico Hischier a little bit. Obviously, I'm playing Taylor Hall and Palmieri on a decent amount of tournament teams tonight. So I think he makes some sense. Nugent Hopkins, same thing. Yeah, so as far as the rest of tier 4 and Gallagher, I guess I got a little bit off topic there. I think Couture makes sense maybe in tournaments. I'm not really going near Larkin, Parisi, Point. I'm kind of locked into Gallagher, maybe Hischier in some tournaments. Yeah, tier 5 is where I wanted to talk about Nugent Hopkins. I think he's probably the guy. Anytime you can get a guy with Connor McDavid in tier 5, I think that's a really solid strategy, especially in this high-paced game that we want to attack. I don't know if he'll be my cash option, though, because I mentioned how much I like Ryan McDonough. In this high total game. Again, just his floor, access to the first power play unit in Tampa Bay. I think he's the guy you want in cash. I'm going to be sprinkling in Nugent Hopkins and Mitch Marner in tournaments. I think he's the third guy. Tier 6, probably the easiest tier for me. There's basically only one decision. Tuck in cash games for sure. I think he's got the best floor out of any of these options. Nikita Kucherov, if you really want to stack up that Tampa Bay game, is probably my second guy. You can make an argument for Ferland kind of as a one-off play, just not really stacking up Carolina. Same thing kind of with Panarin, more of a one-off play for me. Vatanen, really strong floor from this guy. So I would love to stack him up with some of the other New Jersey guys, but he's on the second power play unit. So I think he's a decent ways away from some of these other options, but decent peripherals. Tier 7, mentioned Evander Kane and his price. That's probably the only reason he's in Tier 10. So I don't think you really have to mess around with anyone besides Kane in this tier. Maybe Atkinson if you're playing Panarin. But yeah, I'm not really interested in anyone else in this tier really besides Kane. I might just go overweight, play 100%. Draisaitl on McDavid teams, maybe. But yeah, that's pretty egregious for Kane in Tier 7. Tier 8, this one is also pretty easy for me. Oscar Klefbom, get access to Connor McDavid in Tier 8 in this game that we really like for pace. And the guy that's got elite peripheral stats and floor, leads this entire tier by a large margin in Corsi. The only other guy I'm really considering is Stamkos. I think Stamkos is a play in this tier to go overweight on in tournaments just because of his upside, that high total. Really like him in Tier 8. Those are the two guys. I honestly don't think there's anyone else in this tier that I want. So Stamkos and Klefbom for me, it is pretty close. I think Stamkos is probably the upside play. Klefbom probably the floor play. All right, on to the player props. Definitely going to be doing a video to kind of walk through some of the different sites where you can get different lines for hockey. All the shot stuff is only on Bovada. So if you want to bet some player props as far as the hockey side of things with me, definitely get a Bovada account. One of the things that I'm looking at specifically tonight is going short on Vladimir Tarasenko. 4 shots, you get minus 115 at him against Carolina. Lowest Corsi 4 over the past month of any team on the slate. And St. Louis has the lowest Corsi 4 of any team as well. So they're just not shooting a lot against a team that doesn't give up a lot of shots. 4 shots is a lot, guys. So Tarasenko under 4, definitely on that. We have his shot prediction at 3.2. So I think that it's really good value there from Tarasenko. In this same game, Curtis McElhinney, I think he makes a lot of sense with the under for a lot of the same reasons that I'm short on Tarasenko. So 26.5 saves, that's pretty low as it is. I have the projection at 22.1 right now. But again, lowest Corsi 4 by far on the slate for St. Louis. Just going under on these Carolina goalies has been really popular or really profitable this year. So willing to do that again with McElhinney today, under 26.5 saves. As far as the other prop that I'm looking at, I think there's a lot of good options today, but there's one in this Minnesota game that really stands out to me, and it's Jason Zucker. So Zucker is a guy that I want to be short on today. So 3 shots seems a little bit high to me. Second lowest Corsi 4 as a team on the slate against San Jose. I talked about how much I like San Jose for the offensive ability. They've also been one of the best defensive teams in the league. 3rd lowest shots against this year, and 3rd lowest Corsi against on the entire slate. So definitely want to be short on 3 shots for Zucker. You can get even money on that right now. So I think that that's a really, really strong value, something that I'll be attacking in the props market, and that's going to do it for props today. But if you guys like these, I can definitely do more. This is something that I'm going to be betting with the Bankroll Challenge as well. So spending a lot of time looking at these lines every day. So again, I'll have the video out soon on how to actually go about betting these. But yeah, these are super inefficient, guys. It's really easy to find some stuff that stands out every day, which obviously I'll be talking about in these videos. So let me know what you think of the props. All right, guys, going to go ahead and end it there for today. Definitely subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. If you want to follow along, interact, ask questions, guys, just come sweat with the rest of the community over in the Discord channel, something I'm really trying to build up. Obviously, there's going to be a ton of live streams over on Twitch going forward as well, so definitely check out the Twitch channel. And yeah, both links in the description below. Good talk. See you guys out there.